Coronavirus, obviously big story. US elections now on an absolute knife edge. Who knows which way that one's going to go. UK is entering its second national lockdown tomorrow. Whoopee. But on the plus side, 2020 seems to be a hell of a year for the Canon RF system. We've had the R5 and the R6 release. Those were pretty news-grabbing cameras. We've had several big lenses, the likes of the 100 to 500 and 85 f2 macro, and then those 6 and 800 mm f11 telescope lenses. And Canon have just added two very interesting lenses to that lineup. A 70 to 200 f4 LIS and a 50 mm f1.8. Yes, the nifty 50 has come to the RF system. And these are really interesting, I think, because so far, the RF system as a whole has been generally more targeted to the higher end of the market. They've had a wide spectrum of cameras, you know, the R5, the R6, the R, and the RP. You know, the RP, ridiculously cheap camera, considering it's a full frame setup, but they just haven't had really the lenses to follow it up. Most of the lenses so far for the RF system have all been really expensive L-grade lenses. Now, I know what you're going to think here. Hang on, one of the two lenses that's just been announced is an L-grade lens. Yes, but being a 70 to 200 f4, it's generally, obviously, a cheaper version of the 70 to 200 2.8. Now, the 70 to 200 2.8 made quite a stir when that arrived on the market because, all right, it's an extending zoom rather than internal zoom, but retracted down, it's a very small lens. But it's very pricey, something like £2,700 in the UK brand new. The 70 to 200 f4, even smaller version than that. So packed down, it's about the same size as a 24 to 105, but it's substantially cheaper than the f2.8 at about £1,000 less. Now, overall, there's good and bad points to this. Firstly, is the fact that having a 70 to 200 on offer for the RF mount that's £1,000 cheaper than the f2.8 can only be a good thing. Okay, it's a stop slower, but realistically, a lot of people don't actually need 2.8 versus f4. So that, I guarantee, is going to be a very popular lens. But the price seems a little bit insane. Now, Canon rumors actually slipped up when they first announced this because they put the price as being about $200 or $300 less than it actually was. It's about £1,700, so £1,000 less than the 2.8, which relatively speaking sort of makes sense because around the same time that the RF system came into place, Canon updated both the 2.8 and f4 versions of the DSLR lenses with the f2.8 Mark III and the f4 Mark II. Now, those two lenses were again about £1,000 difference between the two, but both of them are about £400 or £500 cheaper than their respective RF versions. And this for me is now becoming my next, let's say, criticism, concern of the RF system, which is that Canon are starting to move into the relatively cheaper area of the market in terms of they're coming out with lenses that are cheaper than their more expensive ones. But are they relatively that cheap? And here we come onto the nifty 50. Because again, the nifty 50 has to be by far one of, if not the most popular lenses on the market. And you can tell Canon were excited about this lens because they brought in Trampoline Tony to announce the damn thing. Now, as much as it would be great to see in-body stabilization in that lens, I think they need to put in-body stabilization in Tony because he's all over the bloody place. I'll guarantee 99% of the people who had the Canon DSLR system at some point would have owned a nifty 50 lens. I know I did. In fact, it was the very first standalone lens I bought. I got two slow aperture kit lenses with the camera body, and then I went and bought a 50mm f1.8 Mark II. And yeah, pretty much everyone I know who's owned a Canon DSLR has owned one of the nifty 50s. It's crazy not to get one. They're absolutely like the perfect lens to sink your teeth into shooting with a fast aperture and a really narrow depth of field. So it was inevitable that we were going to see a 50mm 1.8 on the RF system. And it's about what we expected. In fact, it pretty much looks identical to the EF version, apart from the fact that it's obviously native to an RF and you don't then need to strap an adapter onto the back of it. But again, the price of this lens seems to be a bit on the high side. It's $200. Now, I know, relatively speaking, $200 for a brand new lens is pretty low. But by comparison, the EF 50 STM, when that came out, or granted it was 5 years ago, but it was less than $140. And inflation has not gone up that much. I was expecting it more to be around the kind of 160 mark, not 200. That's a good, what, 20% higher? Now, obviously, these are brand new lenses, and the price is going to start to come down once they've been on the market for a while, once second-hand copies start hitting the market as well. The prices will start to tumble. But the launch prices of all the RF lenses seem to be quite a bit higher than their relative DSLR counterparts. Now, I know the higher-end RF lenses, when they first launched, they had caveats like, you know, they were replacing DSLR lenses that were 20 years old, and they were introducing features like image stabilization into them, which was going to jack up the price. The 70 to 200s had the argument that they were a much more radical design that was a lot smaller when folded down, so that's maybe some way into the argument of the F4 being so much higher than the DSLR. The 100 to 500, obviously more expensive than a 100 to 400. But this 50 f1.8 is near enough identical to the DSLR variant. Even the optical layout seems to be fairly similar. Obviously, it's tweaked slightly to correct for the shorter flange distance, but there's not like a huge difference in overall design of the lens. So no doubt, it's great to see these lenses hit the shelves. It's great for people wanting to get into the RF system and not spend a fortune on the higher end lenses. And I hope to see, you know, even more budget friendly options hit the shelves soon. But it does start to bring into question, is there a real justifiable reason for these inflated prices over the DSLR lenses? Or is it the Canon are just, you know, jacking the price up because they know people are prepared to pay it? You know, like the 50mm RF is almost double the price of what you can get the EF mount version for. And you put that EF mount onto an adapter, okay, it's a little bit bigger, but it probably works just as flawlessly. Which one would you pick? In fact, what do you make of both of these lenses? Are you excited by them? Are you going to be ordering any of them? Let me know your thoughts and comments in the box down below. While you're down there, if you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.